Hey everybody, Grill Father Johnny Owl here, and today I'm going to smoke you a beef tenderloin butt that you can't refuse, and my buddy back here is going to help me out. Stay tuned, I'll see you back at Texas North.
We are live from my backyard where I am smoking these meat like a brisket. I'm making meat now. Someone asked me, do I smoke meat? That's gonna be delicious. Yeah, I smoke meat, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Welcome back. Now, the tenderloin butt is the thickest part of the tenderloin, and I just want to show you here on the beef chart where it comes from. It comes from this section of the cow right here between the rib and the sirloin section. So right here, it's called the short loin section, and that's where the tenderloin butt comes from. On average, the tenderloin butt will weigh anywhere between 2 and 7 pounds. So what I'm going to do is get the tenderloin butt out of its packaging and pat dry the myoglobin off of it, and then we will get to prepping it up after that. So this is an Angus tenderloin butt. I do have some cleanup to do on the surface here. So I am just going to go ahead and take care of removing some of this fat all the way around on the meat before we actually get into putting our binder and our rub on. And what I like to do is with beef is I will put the beef in the freezer for maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. And what that does is allow this surface to harden up a little bit. And what it'll do is really make trimming this fat much easier, because you don't want the fat to be too warm, because then it gets mushy and really becomes hard to easily cut it off. So stick it in the freezer. It's kind of a little bit of a hack to help harden up the fat and make it easier to cut. This piece right off the side here, it's rather large, rather thick. We have some silver skin here to deal with, so we'll get that off of the surface as well. So here's the finished trimmed up product. I got a lot of that surface fat off, as well as the silver skin. So I think we're good to go now. Not worried about making it look perfect. You can see how much fat that we did take off. And I didn't want to go digging in and creating divots into the meat, especially in through here. Wanted to keep it all intact. And I'm not worried about this looking nice and neat and perfect, because all that matters in the end is the taste, the tenderness, and the texture. It doesn't matter how pretty it looks. So let's go ahead and get a binder on this. The binder of choice that I use in my cooks is duck fat. And I'm just going to spray this on, give it a nice coating on all sides. Okay, we're good there. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I don't use salt in my rub mixture because we have enough salt in our American diets, and I just don't want to contribute to it. I'm not on a salt restricted diet or anything like that, but I want to keep it that way so I don't end up on one. So what I use is I use a combination of no salt, a salt substitute, as well as accent. So I will put a coating of the no salt on first, and I put the salt and the accent on first, just so it's easier to see what I'm doing. You put the pepper on first, and it becomes a little bit difficult sometimes to see the salt or the salt substitute that you put on. And now I'm just going to put a little bit of the accent or MSG on, just a light dusting of that, not too much. Don't believe all the reports that you heard in the 70s and 80s about MSG being so bad for you. In the end, when they did the scientific studies recently, they found that those findings were in the 70s and 80s were not accurate. So MSG is an okay thing to use. And then I'm going to use some 16 mesh coarse ground black pepper that I got from Lane's in Georgia. Give this a nice, generous coating as well. Put that in. Again, getting all the sides. The rub will help with the searing first, and then which will give us a nice crust on this roast. And then the crust will become bark once we start to smoke it and get into the smoking process. I do have a bonus ingredient that I like to use with my beef, and that's rosemary. So I'm going to put a little bit of rosemary on just to add a little bit extra to that flavor profile. I'm not going to put a whole lot on, just a tad. That's enough. Now what we'll do is I'm going to transfer this to my cooking rack or cooling rack. I call it a cooking rack. And you know that I like to put my meats on a cooling rack because it's easy to take it to the smoker and out of the smoker. Adds an extra layer here for the smoke to flow through. I can put my water pan underneath there as well. And it's also always a clean surface for me. The grill grates I don't have to worry about because the meat never touches the grill grates. So we're going to put this in the refrigerator overnight, uncovered, let it rest, let this binder and rub mixture kind of do some of its magic with the meat, and then we'll come back and tomorrow and get this on the smoker. It's the next day. We took the tenderloin butt out of the refrigerator. Before we get outside and start cooking, a couple of things I just wanted to share with you. And the first is what I call the 4 T's for successful barbecuing: taste, tenderness, texture, and the fourth, the most important T of all, technique. It's the most important in my mind because if you don't get the technique down correctly, then the taste, the tenderness, the texture, one or all three of those is going to be impacted because something didn't go right in the process. Something didn't go right in the technique. Now you may ask, what about the T of temperature? And temperature is important, not only the temperature inside the smoke chamber, the internal temperature that we cook to, as well as the ambient temperature outside. But I consider controlling that temperature, at least inside of the chamber and the internal temperature, I can consider that temperature is part of the technique. Now, you also may ask about the T of time. I'm not worried about time. The meat's done when it reaches its temperature. One day, a piece of meat could take 5 hours. The same weight, same type, same weight of meat the next day could take 6 hours, or it could take 4 hours. So I'm not worried about time. The only time that time comes into the picture is when I'm resting the meat at the end, and we'll time it then. So time, in my mind, is not one of the 4 critical T's for successful barbecuing. The other thing I wanted to share with you is what I call cook management. And what I do to help manage and monitor my cook is I have a cook log book, and contained within this 3-ring binder, I have a cook sheet for all the meats that I smoke. And what I do is every time I do a cook, I fill out the sheet for that day. We'll take a look at that in just a moment for today's particular cook. And that sheet just helps me to manage and monitor the cook and to keep focused and to make sure that I'm doing things when they need to be done. That way I don't have to try to remember when did I spritz last, or when did I change the wood, or whatever it may be. It's all lined up there for me, and I can just refer to it. Plus, when I go to do a tenderloin butt the next time, whether it's 6 months or whatever it is down the road, I can pull out this sheet and familiarize myself instantly with what I did on this particular day and not try to have to reinvent the wheel. Here's a close-up of today's cook log. You can see that we are going to be using the Pit Boss smoker to do the Angus beef tenderloin butt. The roast was almost 4 pounds, 3.9 pounds. Remember, the average is somewhere between 2 and 7 pounds, so it's right in the middle there. Purchased it fresh from Sam's Club. You saw that we did the pepper and salt substitute and MSG rosemary mixture for the rub, and we used the duck fat binder to hold that rub on. And we're going to be cooking with post oak mini splits in our smoke box that we're going to put inside the chamber, as well as post oak pellets. And we will be using a water pan in there as well. Looking today to smoke at 250 degrees and get it to an internal temperature of 130. But before we do that, as I mentioned a moment ago, we're going to sear it first, get a nice crust on it before we put it in the smoker, and then we will annotate the start and end time for the rest period. I'll record what the weather conditions were for today and any other comments or notes that I could use for the next time around. So let's go outside and get cooking. The smoker is up to temperature, so the last thing we need to do before we put the meat on is to get our smoker box fired up. And this is the smoker box here. This is a Diamond King smoker. It's a 6-inch by 12-inch size. It comes in a 6x6 as well. This is a game changer when it comes to pellet grills. This smoke box is going to give you stick burner, offset smoker type quality of smoke. And the way it works is you have this stainless steel smoker box. Inside I have an airflow cage with some fire starters. Then I have some lump charcoal in there. I'm going to fire this up. And we're going to let this lump charcoal ignite. Let it ash over just a little bit. Then we're going to come back and we're going to put our post oak mini split on. So we'll give this just a few minutes. Nice fire is going now. The lump charcoal is ashing over. So let's go ahead and put on our post oak mini split. And I get these at Woodchuck Firewood. Andy is the person that runs that company, and he can get you any kind of wood. I just like to use the post oak. You can see I have a nice mini split here. We'll go ahead and put this on. Let it catch. I'm just going to give it a little jump start with the torch here as well. And I promise you, when this goes into the smoker, you're going to see some beautiful post oak smoke generating. Again, this is a game changer for pellet grills. I highly recommend you spend the $50 to get yourself a smoker box. It does take up a little bit of room, but if you're only smoking one meat at a time, which is what I do, then it's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and let this catch, and then we'll get over to the smoker. I have the Lodge cast iron skillet up to about 550 degrees, and just going to open it up here, put some canola oil on it to help the beef, the tenderloin butt, not stick. Now I'm going to put this on. I will have the bacon press on there to help keep the surface as close to the cast iron skillet as possible, and we will let that develop a nice crust for a few minutes, and then we'll check back in.
2 minutes later.
It's been about 2 minutes. Let's go ahead and check it and flip it. Take off the bacon press. See how things are doing underneath. Okay, it's looking good. Go ahead, flip it now. And then we'll do the other side. Before we transfer it over to the smoker. All right, the other side is done. So I will take this off. I already have the smoker up and running. So what I'll do is just transfer this onto our cooling rack, back onto our cooling rack. And then we will move over to the smoker, which I had right next door. And I'll transfer the cooling rack right into the smoker. I already have the water pan going. It has hot water in it. You always want to put hot water in it. The smoker box is rolling. It's got some nice post oak, some nice light blue post oak smoke going. It's up the temperature. Remember, we're cooking at 250. We want to take this to 130 degrees internal temperature. We're just going to manage and monitor at this point. The M&M phase starts right now. Until we get to 130, we'll check in once or twice, give it a spritz or two once or twice as well. We're about an hour into the cook, and we got some nice smoke still rolling on the post oak. I did replenish it a little bit ago. So now I'm just going to add some moisture to the meat by giving it a spritz of some apple cider vinegar, help with that bark formation, and then we will check in probably one more time. See you in a bit. Well, friends, my probe went off saying we're at 130 degrees internal. I'm going to take my Thermapen and just do a double check. Yep, it's showing 130, so I'm going to take this off, wrap it up in foil, let it rest for 15 minutes, then we'll get to carving it up. I'll see you inside. We let our tenderloin butt rest for about 15 minutes, and if you're interested, it took about a little over 2 hours, about 2 hours and 10 minutes to cook this. It was a warm day. It was in the mid-80s today here at Texas North in Columbus, Ohio. So I think that helped with moving this along. Remember, we cooked at 250. So let's go ahead, take this out of its aluminum foil. We will get to carving this up. Looks really juicy. See the juices here in the foil. All right, we'll set that aside. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I like to slice on the double bias. And what that does is help make the meat even more tender just based on the way that it's cut. So slicing on the bias is a 45-degree angle. Slicing on the double bias is taking that and turning it 45 degrees this way. So we'll go ahead and we'll start slicing down on the double bias. I always like to cook beef to medium rare, usually 125 to 130. I took this to 130 today. It's slicing up very nicely. The knife is just gliding through it. Almost here to the middle. Got some nice juices flowing. And we're just about here into the middle. Take one more slice. There you go. Oh, take that off there. So that's what we're looking at for the inside of this tenderloin butt. A nice medium rare, pulls apart very easily. So what I'm going to do is finish cutting this up, do a little taste test on my own off camera. I'll explain why I do that off camera, and then we'll come back and make some closing comments. I finished slicing up the tenderloin butt, and then I rang the bell to let the gang know that it's time to eat. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I don't do a taste test on camera, and it's because I can't offer you a bite to eat, so I'm not going to eat in front of you. But I did do a little taste test off to the side, and I was really happy. I think the juiciness and the tenderness were amazing. The bark was really good. So I was really happy overall with the way that the taste, the tenderness, and the texture turned out. That's all that really matters. If we get the technique right, then those three will take care of itself. It took a little over 2 hours to smoke. The last time I did this, it took 4 hours. But remember, we don't care about time. Like I said earlier in the video, it can take 2 hours one time, 3 hours the next time. That doesn't matter. We want to get it to the right temperature. Let it rest. We let it rest for 15 minutes, and it turned out amazing. So I'm not going to do the taste test on camera, but I am going to give this the Grill Father Johnny L stamp of approval. Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by the channel today. Hope you found this video useful and helpful. Would you do me a favor of hitting the like and subscribe buttons, as well as sharing this video with a family member or friend? Till next time, this is Grill Father Johnny L. Take care, God bless, smoke on.